What's up, everyone? It's Matt Mrozik, aka MVM397, with Super Sonico work in progress number 3. So I got everything kind of sanded down and primed the other day, and while the primer was driving, I managed to knock out a Dexter bust. It took me about 2 days to do, so that was a lot of fun. So here we are with the major parts in primer. There's some other smaller parts off to the side that I don't need to do any sanding on, but these are going to need, I'm just going to go over these real quick and look at the primer, see how it looks. Here's the hair, which was the trickiest part, and I ended up just go ahead and gluing all the major parts together because there were some gaps that need to be filled. Like there's a big old gap that went from the top here and went all the way down to the bottom. There was a gap, this is a piece right here, and there's a pretty good gap between where that joined in. This is a separate piece here, and there's a pretty good gap. So I went ahead and glued all the hair together to fill in the. After it was all glued together, I went in with some Milliput fine, and I filled the gaps. And while the Milliput was still semi malleable or workable, I just took my finger and dipped it in some water and smoothed it out, and that reduced the amount of sanding I had to do to the putty. So a nice trick with Milliput is that once it's starts to set up a little bit, you can kind of work it with some water on your fingers and kind of just smooth things out to reduce the amount of sanding. And the gap filling looks really good. There's a few little spots I see here that's going to need a little bit of sanding, but this is only the first round of primer, and typically everything gets at least 2 if not 3 rounds, but I think I'll be able to get this with just one more round of primer. You'll notice that this is white primer. I've been trying a new primer offered by Badger called Stynol Res, and I've been using it on my figures, and I really like it. It's a resin, plastic, I guess plow plate, resin, and vinyl primer. So it basically took all those Stynol, resin, and vinyl and called it Stynol Res. It works really good. It sprays straight from the bottle. You have to. It's a little thick, so you have to kind of open up your trigger and spray a slightly higher PSI, but it works pretty good. This is the white primer. They have a gray and a black. And some of my stuff on the black, I just used the black primer as a base coat and gone with that. But this is the white doesn't cover as well, so this took several coats just to kind of get a coverage. But it does show any imperfections really well. So, for instance, like on this piece right here, it looks really good. I see just maybe a couple specks of dust that I'll sand out, and I've got an ultrafine 3M sanding sponge here that's been used. And initially I was going to keep the head separate and paint it separate, but once I put the head on, there was a tiny bit of a gap underneath the chin, right in this area right here. So that was really bugging me. You probably wouldn't have been able to see it once the kit was together and all together, but I went ahead and glued the head on and did fill that gap with Milliput. So it's no big deal. It's not going to make painting really any harder except to mask anything, but it will make a little harder to get paint up underneath the chin, but no big deal. So I'm going to take this used ultrafine sanding sponge and just give everything really a once over, just a wipe. And if I see an area that needs a little work, I'll go ahead and sand that out and then reprime everything. So anything that's going to be skin, I'm going to keep it with this white primer because I want a kind of a pale skin tone. And if it was a gray primer, it would just be harder to get that paler skin tone. So if I start out with white, I'm already on a good start to getting a pale skin tone. So I'm really not sanding this so much as just kind of wiping it down. And this just kind of gets any dust out. I'm always fighting dust. It's a pain. All my kits have dust in them somewhere. The nice thing about flat coat is that pretty much hides all dust, but if you're doing anything that's glossy, dust is going to stick out like a sore thumb. So that's one reason I kind of ran into a problem with my Daphne kit, because I had it all looking good and I went to gloss coat it and there was a speck of dust in it and I went to get it out and I screwed everything up. But since her skin's going to go flat, if there's a little speck of dust and stuff, it won't show up once you flat coat it. So I'm just going in here. There's actually a speck of dust right in there I'm trying to get out. That's pretty significant. If I can see in the primer, it's going to show up in the paint. But really, this is all I'm doing to these pieces that don't need any additional like seam work or anything like that, where the putty looks good. The seam lines that I sanded out are gone. This really doesn't need a lot of sanding. I'm just kind of scuffing it up. And so like that piece is done. This piece is ready for paint. The legs should be pretty good too. Again, super smooth primer. This is probably a good 3 nice generous coats of this primer. I like to put enough on that when I do this final sanding, I won't go through the primer. Oops, it's slippery. It's no big deal if you do go through, but ideally you won't have any resin showing through the primer. Like you won't have a bare spot. In the end, you won't notice a difference, but when you go to throw your color on there, you'll notice a slight texture difference between where there's primer and where there's bare resin. And that disappears for the most part when you flat coat it. I've got a few kits where I sanded through in a few little areas and I didn't bother repriming it, just painted it and it was fine. So like this is looking really good. Again, I'm just basically just wiping this down. And this is a very used ultra-fine sanding sponge. It's more like it's not even gritty. This is really just kind of polishing this. Oh, and also I forgot to show you another step that I always do after I prime is I do a tape test. And I mentioned this in all my resin kits. Take a piece of this tape and I just put it on there really good and I rip it off. If the primer doesn't come off, then I know I've got a good adhesion. I cleaned my resin well and I shouldn't have any lifting. Now later on, this kit has very minimal masking. The only masking there is on the swimsuit. It's yellow with a white trim, so this whole thing will get painted yellow. I'll mask off the trim and then paint it white. And on her, I guess her cover up, this goes striped. So this will be tricky to mask as well as the arms, but that's it for masking. So I already did a tape test earlier, so I know I'm good to go. But this is the next step, just kind of sanding the first coat of primer, getting it nice and smooth, making sure there's no imperfections. If there are any imperfections, you need to fix those now. Just because it all goes through to the final product. Here's the other leg. Again, I'm just seeing a couple specks of dust that are bugging me, so I'm just gonna give these a real quick, very light sanding, more like of a buffing, because I'm not really taking any primer off. It's just kind of smoothing it out. I mean, this is a baby smooth. It's the perfect surface for a pinup style girl. And then I fold it to get in these tricky areas, like in the crook of the knee here. And this will be sprayed with, probably all the skin tones will be acrylics, because I don't have any skin tones in lacquer. But I have a really great set of paints from this company called GarageKits.us. These are all acrylics, and that's what I've been using on my figures, and I love them. They spray really well, straight from the bottle. There's no thinning. I really like them. I do, on a few of the colors, this is from a guy named Jesse Garcia out of Florida. Really super nice guy. I've met him a couple times at Wonderfest. I have several of his kits. Customer service is fantastic. But he has a line of transparent colors, which I really, really like. And you can make your own transparent color. Just take one of the opaque colors and just thin it down quite a bit, and then you have a transparent color. So I use the transparents for adding shadows and different skin tone variations. So that leg's ready to go. Super, super nice. And I'll wash these in soap and water again after sanding, just to get all the sanding dust off. Here's the torso. Again, this is my prep work was really good. So I'm just gonna give this a light, very quick sanding / buffing. And then I should be able, I mean, I could probably paint, depends on how tired, I'm kind of tired right now. I may wait to start painting, because I don't want to start painting the skin tones and not be able to finish it. I find in the few figures that I have done that if I start doing the skin tones and I walk away, I kind of lose track of where I am. So it's better to sit down and have time to get them all knocked out, because I don't know, it just seems easier. If you follow me on Facebook, I did a really cool Dexter caricature bust, and I thought I had the skin tones looking the way I wanted, and after I got the hair and the eyes in, I realized that it needed a little more contrast. So I just went in really tight with my airbrush, and I just I airbrushed some shadow colors in, and I also deal with some pastels. So that's done. Here's the front of her hair. Looks really good. Not sure if it shows up in camera, but you can see through to the pink just a little bit because this primer isn't completely opaque. It is a little translucent. You just have to be real careful with this hair. It is super. I haven't broken any of it yet, so I don't want to do that. You can see I've got a pin there, and that pins into this part of the hair here, up here, and that's what holds the face. Basically, once this is in place on the head, the head's not going anywhere. So it goes like that. And I posted some pictures on Facebook of it kind of pinned together before I primed, so you get a sense of what she looks like. But so the way this works is this will go in there, and I have a pin, but it's not lined up perfectly, so I may just take it out, because in order for the her clothes to fit on correctly, this has to be super, like not super tight, but it just has to be in there perfectly. And then this will come on here. So once it's kissed together, there's no taking it apart. It's together. Like, it won't break down. So that's what she kind of looks like right there with the hair on. I was dreading the hair as far as like assembling it. It actually wasn't too bad. It went smoother than I anticipated. See if I can get this off without breaking it as I talk about it. There are a few other little strands here, like this one right here, and this guy. There's a little hole in the side of her head here. It's kind of weird how they work. Actually, this one and this one, sorry. Nope, I had it right the first time. So these like both fit into this hole, and it's like a puzzle. So like this piece goes like that, and then this piece comes in like this. And once you get everything together, it makes sense. Right now it doesn't make sense the way that is. And then this piece over here, there's a little spot for over here also. So like that. And those will get glued into place. So these pieces do have a little work, I see. Not sure if it shows up in camera, but I can see a little bit of the mold line there. So I'm going to sand that out as carefully as I can without. And this I may break out a super fine right here, which I think I'm going to do, and just get rid of that. And if you can see there where the primer's going away, I'm not sure if it's showing up. Let's see. You can kind of see a line, and that line shows me that there's still a mold line there. So just real carefully, just taking this super fine sanding sponge and just kind of getting rid of that. The hair was, like I said, it wasn't as hard as I thought it was. It was a little challenging to try to get in there and get all these little mold lines out, because it's all on the big piece, it's on every little strand. And trying to get in there and sand it without destroying it was just nerve-wracking. So, but I managed to do it, I think. And I mean, some of this is where really good resin comes into play. So with this resin being kind of soft and a little malleable, meaning that it's not brittle. If this was brittle resin, I would have broken a ton of that hair trying to sand it. So that's like when you get something from E2046 or Recast or something like that, they're using cheaper resin. It's typically brittle. If you ever get a Recast from Thailand, which I don't suggest doing, it's not worth spending the money on a cheap kit like that. Plus, you're not supporting the artist. But it's really bad. I bought one just to see, and it was terrible. I basically threw it away. The resin was so bad. And then I went out and bought the original because it was well worth it. But so you can see here also on the back side of this piece, maybe the camera will focus. There's a little bit of a line right there. That's where the mold line is. So I need to try to get that out. Actually, what I'll do for that, because on the back side it's flat, I can scrape it with my blade like this. Because this back side's flat anyway. And this blade's a little old. There it goes. And then what I'll do is I'll just go in there and I'll smooth that out a little bit with my sanding sponge. And same thing with this piece. I can see a mold line here. So that's where the primer comes into play. Kind of shows anything you missed. And it gives the paint something better to stick to. Same thing in here. Oops. Go ahead and clean this up. So, and again, anyone who's new to resin just knows a lot of prep work. And it's tedious and it's time consuming, but if you do it correctly, it'll save you tons of headaches later when you're painting. So just take your time and do it. Trust me. Start doing shortcuts. You're gonna hate yourself later. But this is really, really good resin. It's super. It's soft. It sands relatively easy. And so basically this is what I'm doing now. I'm going through and just checking everything one more time, make sure I don't need any additional work on anything. And then I'll do one more round of primer and off the paint. So it's like this piece is good to go, I think. And here's the big part of the hair. And on this one, I think since I did have some play work, I'm just gonna go with the super fine, and I'm gonna give this a good sanding to see if anything pops up. So you may not see it right away, but as soon as you start sanding, you may start to see trouble areas. So I'm going through the resin a little bit there. That's okay, because I'm going to prime this again later. And I think I'll keep this white primer also, because the pink is a fairly light pink that this is going to go. Pretty much the same color as the resin was. But I'll go in there and I'll add some shadows and stuff into the different nooks and crannies. So, like looking at this, there's some areas that need a little attention with the sanding sponge, if I can get it in there. Some areas it's like you can't get anything into it. It's just so tight. But if I can get to it, I'm going to sand it and get it as smooth as I can. Because you can't hide stuff with paint. Trust me, I've tried. All it does is paint just brings things more out. Any trouble areas, it just makes them stick out more. So if you try to hide stuff with paint, you're just doing yourself a disservice. But see, like on this piece, I had to sand every one of these little strands all the way around because of the mold line. I don't know how they cast a piece like this without destroying it. It's really impressive that they can do that. Now, granted, there are 2 or 3 little strands that were glued on separately, but for the most part, this is one piece, which is crazy to me. Most kit manufacturers probably couldn't pull that off decently. Volks, on the other hand, does it well. But I'm gonna spend a little more time with this off camera, but I see a few little areas, not too many, maybe a half dozen, that I need to go in and just kind of hit really well with the sanding sponge. So those are good. Now let me put this over here so I know I have to go back over it. I'm gonna just hit this little piece again. So lots of sanding, lots and lots of sanding with resin. That's good. The swimsuit, it looks good. I'm just gonna give it a real quick swipe with the ultra fine. And it's good. So I have a pile and I kind of move them to the side as I know it, get them done. Oh, I'll show you one piece that I saw that needed some work. One of the flip-flops. Here, I don't know if you can see it on camera. The bottom there. Come on, focus. And the bottom here, there's the mold line still there, so I'm just going to scrape it off. And it's not going to show up because this is a white resin with white primer, so you're not going to see it, but I can see it. I can see it coming through the primer. I'm just going to take care of that real quick. So, all right, we're getting pretty long here. It's about 20 minutes of me sanding and mumbling on, but anyway, you get the idea. Go through, check all your parts, sand anything out that needs work. I don't see anything that needs any additional putty work, so I'm lucky there. But yeah, so this is the next step, and then after this, I'll throw a primer on anything that needs primer again, and then we're off to paint. So the next work in progress, I don't know if I'll shoot me painting anything. I might. Maybe I'll show you how I'm starting to do. I mean, I'm really new to figures. This will be my fifth figure to do. Since I've done the 2 Film These Girls kits, I've done the 2 11 busts, and I just finished that Dexter bust. So this is number 6. And I'm really digging these figure kits. They're fun. They're relatively quick compared to a Gundam kit, where it takes me months and months to do. I can get I did the Dexter bust in like under 48 hours. I did it in like 2 days. The 11 kits I could have done in a weekend if I just had a weekend to do them. This kit I could probably get done in 2 or 3 solid days of just straight work. I could get it done. But you know, I have a job and work and kids and stuff, so I don't have the time to do that. But anyway, here's an example. You can see the mold line right there. Take that out. This will get another dose of primer. But as always, it's Matt Mrozik, aka MVM397, signing off, and we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks.